Ambassador Kim Soo-jin walked slowly through the bright metal hallways of the huge space station. Her blue diplomatic dress felt heavy on her shoulders. Every step reminded her that she spoke for all humans in this place full of alien beings who had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. The council meeting room was enormous. 12 different alien species sat in a circle, each one looking down at the small human section. Kim took her seat in the area marked for junior members, and tried to look confident. "Today we vote on new trade routes through the Andorian sector," said Council Speaker Vorthak. His body looked like living crystal and his voice sounded like wind chimes. "All in favor?" 11 hands, claws and tentacles rose into the air. Kim raised her hand too, but she knew it did not really matter. Humans always got the leftover routes that nobody else wanted. "The vote passes," Vorthak announced. "Humans will be allowed to use cargo lanes 7 through 12. Kim smiled and nodded, even though lanes 7 through 12 were the slowest and most dangerous paths in space. The profitable routes went to the older species as always. She made notes on her tablet while the Veilthak representative smiled with too many teeth. After the meeting, Kim walked to the observation deck. Through the huge windows she could see dozens of alien ships coming and going. Most belonged to the Veilthak Empire or the Zephyrian Syndicate. These two groups controlled most of the galaxy's trade and military power. "Another successful day of diplomacy," she whispered to herself with a bitter smile. Far away on the frontier world of New Geneva, Dr. Park Min-ho was having a much better day. He stood in his laboratory, looking at readings that made his heart race with excitement. The numbers on his screen showed something that should have been impossible. "Dr. Park," called his assistant Lee Doon. She ran across the lab, almost tripping over cables and equipment. "The quantum interface is working perfectly. The biological integration is stable." Park looked at the data again. For 3 years, his team had worked on connecting living cells with hyperspace energy. Most scientists said it could not be done. Living things in hyperspace did not mix well. But somehow they had found a way. "This could change everything," Park said quietly. "Ships that can heal themselves, communication across any distance, maybe even faster than light travel without engines." His research team gathered around the main display. There were 12 humans, 8 Kalari with their blue skin and large eyes, and 3 Threnodai who looked like walking trees. They had all worked together for years, sharing ideas and friendship. "We need to tell the council," said Keela, one of the Kalari scientists. "This discovery belongs to everyone in the galaxy." Park nodded and started typing a message to request a presentation slot at the next council meeting. He did not know that hidden cameras were recording everything. He did not know that computer programs were analyzing every word he typed, looking for threats to the established order. In the council's secret monitoring center, alarms began to flash. The artificial intelligence that watched all human activities had flagged Park's research as potentially destabilizing to galactic power structure. That night, in a private room deep inside the council station, 2 figures met in secret. The Veilthak military commander, General Krex, looked like a giant lizard covered in metal armor. Across from him sat Syndicate Director Zal, whose pale skin and black eyes marked him as pure Zephyrian. "The humans are advancing too quickly," Krex said in his rough voice. "This quantum biological research could make them independent of our transportation networks." Zal touched his tablet, showing data about human colonies. 17 settlements in the past 2 years. They reproduce fast and adapt to any environment. Their technology improves every month. "My spies report they are forming friendships with the Kalari and Threnodai," Krex added. "Soon they might have allies." The 2 leaders looked at each other with understanding. The Veilthak had controlled galactic military power for 5,000 years. The Zephyrians had controlled trade and economics for just as long. Neither group wanted competition from upstart humans. "What do you suggest?" Zal asked. "A security inspection," Krex replied with a cold smile. "Several human colonies have been developing dangerous technologies without proper oversight. We should examine their research facilities closely." "Very closely," Zal agreed. Back on New Geneva, Dr. Park worked late into the night. His quantum biological interface hummed quietly in its containment field. The breakthrough represented years of peaceful cooperation between species. He imagined a future where all races in the galaxy could benefit from this technology. Lee Doon brought him coffee and sat down at her own workstation. "Dr. Park, do you think the council will approve our research?" "Why would they not?" Park asked. "This could help everyone. Faster ships, better communication, medical advances. We are not trying to build weapons." "I hope you are right," Doon said quietly. Neither of them noticed the small surveillance device in the corner of the room. Neither saw the data being transmitted to Council security. They continued working, believing that good intentions and scientific progress would be welcomed by the galaxy's leaders. The next morning, Kim Soo-jin received Park's request for a Council presentation. She smiled as she read about the quantum biological breakthrough. Finally, humanity had something truly valuable to offer the galactic community. She began preparing Park's presentation request, not knowing that General Krex and Director Zal were already planning their response. The peaceful overture was about to become something much darker. Captain Han Woojin was drinking his morning coffee when the alarm started screaming. He ran to the security office and looked at the main screen. His face went white with fear. Dozens of huge warships were appearing in space around New Geneva like dark ghosts. "How many ships?" he asked his security officer. 43 vessels, sir. All Council military. Veilthak Empire and Zephyrian Syndicate flags. Han's hands shook as he reached for the communication panel. This was supposed to be a peaceful research colony. They had no weapons, no military defenses. Just scientists, families, and their alien friends working together. In his laboratory, Dr. Park Min-ho heard the alarms and felt his stomach drop. He looked out the window and saw the massive ships blocking out the sun. Their weapons were already glowing with deadly energy. "Dune?" he called to his assistant. "Something is very wrong. Start recording everything and prepare the emergency transmission." Lee Doon's fingers flew over her keyboard. She started copying all their research data and opening communication channels to Earth. "Dr. Park, those ships have enough firepower to destroy entire planets. Why are they here?" The answer came through the colony's speakers in a cold, mechanical voice. "This is General Krex of the Veilthak Empire. We are conducting a routine security inspection of this facility. All personnel will remain in their current locations. Do not attempt to leave the colony." Dr. Park grabbed his research files and ran toward the communication center. His Kalari colleague, Keela, met him in the hallway. Her blue skin had turned pale with fear. "Park, my people are saying this is not normal," she whispered. "Those ships are in attack formation." Through the colony's windows, they could see the weapons systems on the Council ships powering up. Bright energy began gathering at the tips of massive cannons. The peaceful settlement below looked tiny and helpless compared to the war fleet above. "Get to the emergency shelters," Park told Keela. "Take the other Kalari and Threnodai researchers. Hurry." But it was already too late. The first blast hit the main residential area without any warning. The explosion was so bright it turned the sky white for a moment. When the light faded, an entire neighborhood was gone. Nothing remained but burning craters and twisted metal. "They are not inspecting us," Dune screamed as she watched the destruction. "They are killing us." More explosions followed. The orbital cannons fired again and again, targeting schools, hospitals, and evacuation centers. Park watched in horror as the nursery where human and alien children played together disappeared in a ball of fire. He grabbed the emergency transmitter and started broadcasting to Earth. "This is Dr. Park Min-ho on New Geneva. We are under attack. Council forces are bombing civilian targets. They are killing everyone, children, families, our alien colleagues too. This is not inspection, this is genocide." The communication array exploded just as he finished speaking. The last thing Park saw was Dune reaching toward him before the laboratory ceiling collapsed. On Earth, Ambassador Kim Soo-jin was in her office preparing for another boring council meeting when the emergency message arrived. She played Park's transmission and felt the world spin around her. The images showed her people being murdered from space. She immediately called for an emergency council session. Her request was denied. She tried calling Council Speaker Vorthak directly. No answer. She sent urgent messages to every council member she could reach. All ignored. For 6 horrible hours, Kim watched the news reports as 4 human colonies were wiped out completely. New Geneva, Harmony Station, Terra Verde, and New Sol. All gone. All the people she had worked to protect, all the dreams of peaceful cooperation between species, destroyed in a single day. The casualty reports kept coming. 4.2 million humans dead. But it was not just humans. Thousands of Kalari, Threnodai, and other alien civilians who had chosen to live and work alongside humanity were also killed. The Council had murdered their own people along with the humans. Finally, Council Speaker Vorthak appeared on the galactic news networks. His crystal body reflected the lights as he spoke in his cold, emotionless voice. "The human colonies in question posed unacceptable risks to galactic stability," he announced. Their rapid technological advancement and social integration with other species created dangerous instabilities. The surgical action taken today was necessary to preserve peace. Kim stared at the screen in disbelief. Surgical action? They had murdered millions of innocent people and were calling it surgery. Vorthak continued, Earth has 72 hours to withdraw all remaining humans from Council space. Any human presence beyond the Sol system after this deadline will be considered an act of war and will face complete annihilation. Kim's hands trembled as she read through the endless lists of the dead. Dr. Park Min-ho, who had dreamed of helping all species travel the stars together. Lee Do-eun, who had worked 18-hour days because she loved discovery. Captain Han Woo-jin, who had protected the colony's children like they were his own. Families with names she recognized from years of diplomatic work. Scientists who had shared their knowledge freely. Children who had been born in space, knowing no home but the stars. All gone. The phone rang. It was the president of Earth calling an emergency meeting. Kim knew what they would discuss. How to evacuate the remaining humans from space. How to retreat back to Earth with their tails between their legs. But as she looked at the pictures of the dead children, something cold and hard formed in her chest. The council had made a terrible mistake. They thought they were ending a threat by killing innocent people. They had no idea what threat they had actually created. Admiral Yoon Ji-hai stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching hundreds of human ships flee from Council space. To anyone watching, it looked like humanity was running away in defeat. The great evacuation fleet moved slowly, packed with refugees and survivors from the destroyed colonies. Admiral, her communications officer reported, the Council is broadcasting our retreat across the galaxy. They are calling it proof that humans know their place now. Yoon nodded but said nothing. Let them think that. Let the whole galaxy believe humanity was broken and scared. It would make what came next much easier. Inside the refugee ships, something very different was happening. Every person who had lived in Council space was being quietly interviewed by intelligence officers. They asked about everything. Which Council species were unhappy with their leaders, where military bases were located, what weaknesses they had noticed in alien technology. Maria Santos had worked as a maintenance engineer on a Zephyrian trade station. She told them about the station's power grid problems and how the alien supervisors treated the Kalari workers badly. The Kalari hate the Zephyrians, she whispered. They talk about rebellion when the supervisors are not listening. Dr. Kim Hwan had been a medical officer on a mixed species research station. He brought detailed scans of Veilthak military implants. Their cybernetic systems have a weakness, he explained. They depend too much on their central command network. If you could disrupt it? One by one the refugees shared their knowledge. Council military codes overheard in alien bars. Trade route schedules memorized by human cargo pilots. Political gossip from diplomatic parties. Even children contributed, telling about alien friends who were angry at their own governments. But the most important intelligence came from the ruins of New Geneva. A team of human salvage specialists had secretly landed on the destroyed world before the official evacuation. Working in radiation suits, they dug through the wreckage of Dr. Park's laboratory. Found it, announced the team leader Lieutenant Commander Baek So-young. In a sealed container, they discovered Park's quantum biological research data. The files were damaged but readable. Everything he and Do-eun had discovered was still there. Back in the Sol system, General Oh Tae-min received the data with quiet satisfaction. He stood in a hidden shipyard built inside a hollowed-out asteroid. Around him, thousands of human workers labored on something the galaxy had never seen before. Sir, called Chief Engineer Cho Young-soo, we have successfully integrated Park's quantum interface technology into the prototype. The test results are beyond our expectations. General Oh walked to the massive construction bay where their secret weapon was taking shape. It did not look like any ship in the galaxy. Where alien vessels were built for intimidation or efficiency, this one was built for something else entirely: adaptation. The quantum biological system lets the ship learn and change in real time, Cho explained. If enemies fire energy weapons, the shields adapt to block that exact energy type. If they use different tactics, the ship's systems adjust automatically. And communication? Oh asked. Instantaneous across any distance. Each ship in the fleet will be connected to all others like neurons in a brain. Perfect coordination no matter how far apart they are. Oh smiled grimly. The council had killed Dr. Park and Do-eun, but their discovery would live on in ways the murderers never imagined. While the military prepared for war, Ambassador Kim Soo-jin worked on a different kind of battle. She had officially retired from diplomatic service, but secretly she was busier than ever. Using hidden communication channels, she reached out to resistance groups across Council space. Her first meeting was with Keela, the Kalari scientist who had escaped from New Geneva. They met on a neutral space station far from Council patrol routes. "My people are ready to fight," Keela said, her blue skin darker than usual with anger. "The Council killed my friends, my research partners. They bombed the nursery where our children played together." Kim nodded. "We do not want you to fight for us. We want to fight together as equals. Humanity will share all our new technology freely with anyone who joins us." Word spread quickly through the underground networks. The Threnodai, who looked like walking trees, had always resented being forced to provide timber for Council construction projects. Their leader, an ancient being called Grutka, sent a message through encrypted channels. "The tree folk remember. We will help the humans who treated us as friends." Even some groups within the major Council species began reaching out. A secret faction of Zephyrian merchants, tired of syndicate corruption, offered to provide intelligence about trade routes and supply depots. A group of young Veilthak officers, disgusted by the massacre of civilians, shared military codes and tactical information. Kim coordinated all of these contacts from a hidden base on Ceres. Maps covered the walls, showing Council space marked with symbols for friendly species, resistance groups and military targets. It looked like a war room, which it was. But this war would be different from any the galaxy had seen. "They massacred our people because they feared our potential," Kim told a gathering of rebel leaders from 12 different species. "They thought killing us would end the threat we represented. They were wrong. Help us show them what that potential really means." The plan that developed over the following months was not about conquest or revenge. It was about justice. The Council leadership would pay for their crimes, but ordinary citizens would be protected. Oppressed species would be liberated, not enslaved by new masters. For 18 months, humanity prepared. Ships were built in secret. Alliances were forged in hidden places. Technology was shared with rebels across the galaxy. The Council believed they had crushed the human threat, but they had actually created something much more dangerous. They had given humanity a cause worth dying for, and allies willing to stand beside them. The reckoning was coming. Council Speaker Thane walked into the meeting chamber like he did every day for the past 1,000 years. His crystalline body caught the light as he moved to his high seat above the other Council members. Everything was normal and peaceful in his galaxy. "Today we discuss mining quotas for the outer systems," he announced in his cold voice. The other 11 Council leaders took their seats. General Krex of the Veilthak Empire looked satisfied as he reviewed reports about increased military production. Director Zal of the Zephyrian Syndicate smiled while reading profit numbers from former human colonies. "The human situation remains stable," reported the intelligence officer. "No significant activity from the Sol system in the past 6 months. They appear to have accepted their place." Thane nodded. The human problem had been solved cleanly 18 months ago. A few million dead, but now the galaxy was safe from their dangerous ideas about equality and cooperation. The natural order was restored. Then every communication screen in the chamber began flashing red. Admiral Yoon Jihai's face appeared on displays across 12 different star systems at exactly the same moment. Her voice was calm but filled with power. "People of the galaxy, humanity has returned. Not as conquerors but as liberators." "Impossible." Krex roared, jumping from his seat. "Humans do not have the technology for galaxy-wide broadcasting." But even as he spoke, reports flooded in from across Council space. Human fleets were appearing everywhere, materializing from hyperspace in perfect coordination. Their ships looked strange and organic, like they were alive. Captain Kang Subin commanded the lead ship approaching the massive Zephyrian trade hub at Nexus Prime. Her vessel was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Its hull shifted and changed color as enemy scanners tried to lock onto it. "Captain," her weapons officer reported, "their defense platforms are powering up. Energy signatures match standard Zephyrian plasma cannons." "Let them fire," Kang said quietly. "Our shields will adapt." The first barrage of enemy fire hit their ship like lightning. But instead of destroying them, the quantum biological shields absorbed the energy patterns and became stronger. The next volley bounced off harmlessly. "Impossible," whispered the Zephyrian commander watching from the trade hub. "No technology can adapt that quickly." Kang opened a communication channel that somehow bypassed all security systems and broadcast directly to every person on the station. "People of Nexus Prime, you have been enslaved by the Syndicate for too long. Today you are free. We will not harm any civilian who does not fight us." Her ship fired but not at the defense platforms. Instead, precise energy beams shut down the industrial complexes that process stolen goods from conquered worlds. The factories went dark, but no one was hurt. Across the galaxy, the same thing was happening. At Veilthak shipyards, human forces disabled weapons production facilities while leaving living areas untouched. At council administrative centers, computer systems were hacked and years of corruption evidence was broadcast publicly. The Kalari, who had been forced to work in dangerous mines for centuries, watched in amazement as human ships arrived at their prison worlds. Their blue faces filled with hope as the mine security systems shut down and the guards fled. "Fight with us as equals," the human commanders broadcast, "or go free. The choice is yours." Keela, the Kalari scientist who had escaped from New Geneva, led her people's ships into battle alongside the humans. Her vessel had been upgraded with quantum biological technology that Park and Dune had dreamed of sharing with everyone. "For our fallen friends," she whispered as her weapons disabled a council patrol ship. The Threnodai tree people emerged from their forest worlds with ships that looked like living wood but moved with deadly purpose. They had spent 2 years growing these vessels in secret, using human-shared technology to create something beautiful and terrible. Even within the Council's own forces, rebellion spread like wildfire. Commander Vex, a young Veilthak officer, led 3 entire battle groups in defecting to the Human Alliance. "I will not serve murderers," he announced as his ships joined the Liberation Fleet. The old Council killed innocent civilians. That was not honorable combat. Back on Ceres, Dr. Lim Haewon coordinated the technological aspects of the massive operation. She had been off-world when New Geneva was destroyed, but she carried on the work of her murdered colleagues. Every quantum pulse that connected the Liberation Fleet was a tribute to Park Min-ho and Lee Deun. "All systems coordinating perfectly," she reported to Admiral Yoon. "The quantum biological interface is allowing real-time adaptation across 14,000 ships. We can adjust tactics faster than the Council can respond." In the Council chambers, panic had replaced comfortable routine. System after system was declaring independence. The Kalari homeworld announced they were joining the Human Alliance. The Threnodai systems proclaimed the Old Forest Alliance, and began attacking Council installations. "Send the entire fleet," Krex commanded. "Destroy the human ships before this rebellion spreads further." But his orders were ignored. Half his own military had already defected. The other half was trapped defending critical systems that were under attack everywhere at once. Speaker Thane tried to broadcast emergency messages, but the humans had taken control of the communication networks. Instead of his voice, the galaxy heard testimonies from survivors of Council oppression. Stories of forced labor, murdered families, stolen resources, and destroyed worlds. Director Zal watched his trade empire crumble in real time. How are they doing this? Humans were supposed to be primitive. The answer was simple, though the Council would never understand it. Humanity's strength was not their technology. It was their ability to make friends with anyone willing to work together for something better. The old order was falling apart, and humanity stood at the center of a revolution they had never wanted but would never abandon. The Council homeworld had never been surrounded by enemy ships before. For 3,000 years, it had been the safest place in the galaxy. Now Admiral Yoon Ji-hai looked down at the planet from her command ship, knowing she could destroy it with a single order. Around her flagship, thousands of vessels filled the space above the ancient world. Human ships with their strange, living hulls floated next to Kalari fighters with blue energy fields. Threnodai vessels that looked like giant trees in space moved alongside Veilthak defector ships whose crews had chosen justice over loyalty. "Admiral," her communications officer reported, "we have ships from 63 different species in the coalition. That represents more than 60% of all intelligent life in the galaxy." Yoon nodded but felt no joy in the victory. She thought about New Geneva, about the millions who had died for no reason except fear and hatred. She could order the bombardment of the Council world and end this war in minutes. But that would make her no better than General Krex and his murderers. "Open all channels," she commanded. "Every system, every planet, every ship in the galaxy. I want everyone to hear this." Instead of weapons, Yoon chose something more powerful: truth. The complete archive of Council crimes began broadcasting across every inhabited world. Hidden files that showed centuries of exploitation, forced relocations, and systematic murder. Video recordings of Council leaders laughing about the suffering of lower species. Financial records proving how they had stolen resources from hundreds of worlds. The evidence was overwhelming. The massacre at New Geneva was just the latest crime in a long history of evil. Council forces had destroyed entire species who refused to submit. They had enslaved children, poisoned planets, and committed genocide whenever it served their interests. On the Council homeworld below, millions of ordinary citizens watched the broadcasts in horror. Many had never known what their government really did. They saw images of their own soldiers burning Threnodai forests, enslaving Kalari families, and experimenting on captured humans. In the council chamber itself, Speaker Thane sat frozen in his crystalline throne. His fellow council members looked at each other with fear and guilt. Some tried to leave, but the chamber doors had been sealed by the planet's own security system, now under human control. Ambassador Kim Soo-jin walked into the chamber with representatives from dozens of species. She moved slowly and calmly, like someone who had already won. Behind her came Keela representing the Kalari, Grutka speaking for the Threnodai, and even Commander Vex of the defected Veilthak forces. The ancient chamber had always been designed to make visitors feel small and powerless. The 12 council seats rose high above the floor, forcing other species to look up at their rulers. But now Kim walked to the center of the room and spoke as an equal. Council of Tyrants, she began, her voice carrying to every corner of the galaxy through hijacked communication networks, you have a choice to make. You can step down from power and face trial for your crimes, or we can withdraw our protection and let the people you have oppressed for centuries settle matters themselves. Through the chamber's massive windows, they could all see the coalition fleet waiting in space. But more importantly, they could see the planet's own population gathering in the streets below. The broadcast had shown the citizens exactly what their government had done in their name. Look outside, Kim continued. Your own people are demanding justice. The families of soldiers you sent to die in your wars. The workers you taxed into poverty while you lived in luxury. They know the truth now. Speaker Thane tried to speak, but his voice came out as a weak whisper. His crystalline body had lost its usual bright glow and looked dull and cracked. The human colonies were a threat to stability, he said weakly. We acted to preserve peace. You murdered 4.2 million innocent people, Kim replied coldly, including thousands from your own allied species. You committed genocide because you were afraid of equality and cooperation. General Krex stood up from his seat, his metal armor clanking. We are the rightful rulers of this galaxy. We brought order to chaos. You brought slavery and death, answered Keela, her blue skin bright with anger. My people built your cities and mined your metals for nothing. You killed our children when we asked for fair treatment. Commander Vex, the Veilthak defector, stepped forward. I served this council faithfully for 50 years. But when you ordered the murder of civilians, you lost all honor. You are not worthy to lead anyone. The vote came quickly. Faced with the choice between trial and being torn apart by their own angry populations, the council members chose surrender. One by one, they stepped down from their positions and submitted to arrest by coalition forces. The ancient tyranny that had ruled the galaxy for millennia ended not with a great battle, but with a whimper. 1 year later, Ambassador Kim stood in the rebuilt city of New Geneva. The memorial wall stretched for kilometers, bearing the names of everyone who had died resisting council oppression. Not just humans but beings from every species who had dreamed of something better. Dr. Yong In-soo, who had taken over Park Min-ho's research, worked in the new laboratory complex. Scientists from 63 different species collaborated on projects that benefited everyone. The quantum biological interface technology had led to medical breakthroughs that could cure diseases across species lines. Communication systems now connected every world instantly. Look at this, Yong showed Kim a holographic display of a distant solar system. The Zephyrian refugees from the old Syndicate worlds are terraforming 3 new planets. They are using Threnodai biotechnology and Kalari atmospheric processors. Species that were enemies for centuries are now working as partners. Kim smiled as she placed flowers at the memorial wall. She found Park Min-ho's name carved in stone, next to Lee Do-eun's. These people had died believing in a better future, and that future had finally come. They thought killing us would end the threat we represented, she said quietly. They never understood that the real threat was hope. Hope for something better than their broken system. The twin suns of New Geneva sat behind the memorial, casting long shadows across the names of the fallen. But the future they died for was bright with promise.